It's Thursday morning. It's Sidney by the Sea Rotary at the Shoal Center. My name is John Trelevin. I'm the speaker seeker, and it was our pleasure this morning to welcome Chad Rintoul, Councillor Chad Rintoul, to speak to us about his the job that he does when he's not representing the citizens of Sidney on his second term of council. Happily, the BC Society of Notaries allows him to spend a little bit of time on public business and a lot of time on their own. Chad's the executive director of that association and has a deep interest, obviously, in public policy formulation because before that, he was the executive director of the BC Society of Land Surveyors. So you bring a very interesting background to your public policy from your elected office, but also to the two associations with whom your current employer and previous employer. Chad, welcome. It was a great discussion, and I think one of the issues that we kind of centered on was the challenge that the legal system faces, indeed all of society faces, with distinguishing reality from an AI reality and some of the challenges that puts on your profession.
Yeah, John, well, first off, thanks to both of you for the opportunity to speak to Rotary. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be engaged with your members and talk a little bit about what notaries do in general. And you're right, I'm my role is with the association, and it's our responsibility to advocate on behalf of notaries, promote the work of the profession. And we provide continuing education, which is accredited through the regulator of the profession. So with that lens, in particular, the education piece, the challenge that you referred to with respect to artificial intelligence and viewing, what's real, what's deemed to be real, and what just isn't, is an ongoing challenge for notaries. And to wind the clock back, if you look at the origins here of the profession, going back quite literally to the temples of Egypt, the courts of Rome, and medieval Europe, notaries have been guardians of authenticity, integrity, and trust. And so very much instilled in practitioners to this day are those elements that are so significant to the profession around integrity and trust. And that authenticity piece and the work that both notaries and lawyers conduct can be even more challenging in today's environment for that very introduction that you provided, John. The challenge that we all face in trying to determine, what's accurate and what isn't. And so where we certainly look to the positive influences of AI that may well be there to, and I'm looking at the legal services profession. It's what a lot of industry sees and looks towards, and that's efficiencies. Clearly, there are going to be some aptitudes as systems develop to improve efficiencies for legal practitioners and other professions. Comes to mind, Dye & Durham has just introduced a new software here in British Columbia, Unity for British Columbia, and a lot of, built in, as you see the evolution of these softwares, a lot of efficiencies for notaries and their practices, particularly in this case around conveyancing, that are embraced and provide opportunity.
Sure.
But then when you look to challenges that British Columbians find with perhaps, let's look to developing a will, preparing their last testament, and you see a number of avenues online where people can perhaps, use a template and develop their will.
Fill in the blank. What could be easier?
Right. And then the challenge becomes, to have that document legalized by a lawyer or a notary for that professional to, still have the ability in that process to use their judgment and to use their expertise, not only to guide their client or the individual who's prepared this will, but frankly, to vet it and to ensure that it is, legitimate. and
So,
that individual wasn't under duress, or that individual isn't influenced in some manner because it's a copy and paste document that they may have had access to. Sorry, John, you had a
oh
thought.
no, I'm feeling inspired. I'm feeling comforted by your words. As generations of people look back on these times, which I'm now going to refer to in reference to my comment as the Trump times, and the complete erosion of trust, of norms, of what were professional parameters,
Standards, yeah.
he's destroyed through his negative spirit and his views on life. No rules. There should be none. There should be just none. What I say is right. And so that in amongst a bazillion things will be studied these last 10 years as his as term runs out. So it is so comforting to hear that countries like Canada are trying to work against that trend and to maintain some level of civility in and amongst everything we do. And then for you to say, as one of the sort of tools of that civility, that we're stronger than ever, that we are planning to be the accountability piece of this world is so comforting, Chad. But but as you've identified, not only is there political wins, but there are technology wins that are trying to knock you down. Like to John's point, well, I need a will. Chat GTP, go fill out the will. I need this. So you seem pretty calm, but there's a lot of stuff working against your profession. That's really negative.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of challenges. Just in terms of the evolution of the legal profession here in British Columbia, and this is one of the things that Rotarians heard from me during my presentation, and that was around the Legal Professions Act, which came into force in 2025. So there previously was a Legal Profession Act, which was geared to lawyers, and notaries had their own act. And so government is looking with the public interest in mind to take the three legal professions that are probably best known to British Columbians, lawyers, notaries, and paralegals, and regulate them under one entity, Legal Professions British Columbia, LPBC. And that new entity, is really designed to ensure that anyone working in this space, anyone practicing as a lawyer, a notary, or a paralegal, is going to be working to some standards, John, that I think will resonate with the public. That look,
Mhm.
it's a commonality. I may be dealing, with a lawyer because I'm engaged in a high corporate finance merger, but that same standard, the same credentials, etc., are going to be applied to my notary who longstanding has done residential real estate conveyancing for me. I think it helps assure the public that with one common regulator, the legal services profession is well um, provided with oversight. And that's important in the public interest, more so today, as you both noted, in the challenges that you see in perception versus reality. And that's
Yeah.
why, when John Trelevin opened this, chatting about the conversation with Rotary and being able to prepare your own document versus having it legalized or having it notarized, in the sense that there's still a role for the
Oh,
legal professional in that process. And that is, the obligation is on that professional, on that notary, to know you, to know that this is, again, that you're not under duress, that you're, in a state that you're doing this, going through this very important planning process, with your faculties and with a full understanding of what the opportunities there are for you. And I think that protects and continues to protect the public. So we're not completely, divorcing ourselves of being able to, do this copy and paste and walk away. a lawyer or a notary wants to have that personal engagement with you. I always consider it more of a boutique experience when you're working with a notary who tends to have a smaller practice, who tends to get to know their client, face to face through transactions of this nature, and how important that is in terms of a service to their client. And so, yeah, I think if anything, feel some optimism that there may be some efficiencies built into systems in legal offices, such as a notary office through AI opportunities. But know that what has made a notary, I think, a part of this community is getting to know their client and being very
Chad,
participatory in the communities as well.
Chad, you made a couple of points during the presentation which were quite very notable and I had not thought of it before. I think you said that only BC and Quebec have societies of notaries. No other province does. So I'd like some background on that. And the other thing is, how many notaries are member? What's the size of your association? How many notaries are there across the province? But I was quite intrigued that it's only Quebec and British Columbia that have organized the profession in this way. One that we all agree is so vital and becoming more vital to the normal course of the judicial legal processes, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting, I think in BC, the origins in terms of why a dedicated profession of notaries public are so entrenched in this province. You'll know the name George Perks from our community. George Perks was the first notary public in the colony of Vancouver Island, appointed in August of 1858. And so the profession dates back, to the formation of the colony and our province's origins. And I feel like, Quebec also has a strong foundation based on their roots in civil law. So this is a common law a province of British Columbia. Quebec's a little different. So despite the fact that they're notaries public, operating in both BC and Quebec, they still are under slightly different legal systems. But in BC, I think what's become so important and it's that this profession had the fortune to establish with a strong regulator. And that milestone occurred in November of 1926. So this is the 100-year anniversary of an established regulatory body responsible for the profession. And I think those foundations, if you will, John, enabled the province to embrace the profession and
Sure.
give British Columbians ultimately not just a choice in who they go to for a particular legal service, because a notary's scope of practice is narrower, obviously, than a lawyer. I like to refer to it as non-contentious law that notaries practice. So they're not arguing before a court, but they're doing transactions that work individually and closely with British Columbians on a day-to-day basis throughout the province. And while the numbers of notaries are small, about 420 practicing notaries in BC, you tend to have more of a sole practitioner environment,
Sure.
generally speaking, with a support staff. So staff who may, focus on conveyancing, or the administration element, longer term of administering a will for a client in terms of the record keeping requirements that are there. So a practice may employ 4 or 5, a staff of 4 or 5, and hence that number of 420 is magnified. But what's interesting is that we see notaries quite commonly in smaller or rural communities in British Columbia where there may not be a lawyer, where a notary is the only legal service provider in that community. Membership in our association is voluntary, and yet we have 97% of the practicing notaries in BC who are members of the association, to which they pay dues, to whom benefit from what the association can do collectively on their behalf. It's an enviable level of participation that I'm sure the Bar Association of BC would love to see that type of uptake. But again, we're talking about 13,000 lawyers in BC, and a minuscule number of notaries, but it's about providing the public access to legal services. And there's some communities, as I noted, where the notary, really fills a void.
Well, Chad, on that note, let us, John and I wish the association a very happy centenary. Any organization that can survive 100 years in the winds of change has been well established and well led. And congratulations on what you have brought to the association, and indeed what you brought to the Land Survey Association. But as a tax-paying resident, a citizen of Sidney, I'm delighted with what you've brought to Sidney Council. A pleasure to welcome you to Rotary this morning. We are Sidney by the Sea Rotary. We meet in the Shoal Center every Thursday morning at 7 o'clock for a breakfast. I always tell my friends I can't think of a better way to start a Thursday morning than this, particularly with a speaker of the quality of Chad Rintoul, who we've just spoken to. Join us for breakfast at the Shoal Center. Chad, again, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me today, John.
Absolutely.
John.
Take care, both of you.